Alright, shalom. First and foremost, all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakah Kodash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of GMS Great Millstone who teach and rule well and continues to do so through the spirit and the power of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Peace, love, and salutations to the elect of the nation of Israel, consisting of the 1,000 Israelite elect men who are standing stiffly for the name of the Almighty Yahweh and His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, risking their lives in freedom to do so, especially in the times that we're heading into, as well as the large multitude spoken of in Revelation chapter 7 and 9, consisting of Israelite men, women, and children who are true and sincere believers, helps that makes up the Lord's hopeful elect. To you I say shalom. This is Nahal from the GMS Jamaica camp. Going into Vietnam. So Vietnam shuts down millions of bank accounts over biometric rule. Again, Vietnam shuts down millions of bank accounts over biometric rule. Let's read a little into this. Right? So it says Vietnam has begun a sweeping crackdown on bank accounts that fail to comply with its new mandatory facial biometric identification system, sparking debate over financial inclusion and whether cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin offer a viable alternative for affected users. Wow. So it says Vietnam just froze 86 million bank accounts because account holders didn't comply with new biometric laws that require a face scan or fingerprint for account verification. If users don't comply by the 30th, they'll lose their money. This is why we Bitcoin, right? Biometric verification now required. So they're saying, oh, this is why we use Bitcoin. So Vietnam, and I've seen this article, seen brothers do videos on this article, but I haven't read it. This is the first time reading it. So Vietnam, they've frozen 86 million Vietnamese bank accounts, and that's because they did not have their accounts verified using a facial recognition or fingerprint recognition, right? So the banks in Vietnam are requiring right, a digital biometric identification, means of identification, in order for these Vietnamese to have a bank account. And if they don't comply by the 30th, not sure if it's the 30th of September or when, but by the 30th, essentially they'll be losing the money in their account. Whoa. So it's either you get with the system or you lose your money. That is essentially the idea that Esau, Edom, the so-called Caucasian white man, the elites of them are pushing on a global level. It's either you get with the system or you lose everything that you have. So this is just a precursor. So it says biometric verification now required. As of September 1st, 2025, banks account, and this is a part of the overall global agenda, because you will need to have a digital identity in order to be financially included in society, because all financial records will be tied to a digital identity, and if you do not have a digital identity, eventually it's going to reach right here, like what's happening in Vietnam right now, that this will be happening on a global level, but in the sense of you having a digital identity. biometrics is a part of your digital identity, right? Your digital identity will consist of your fingerprint and also your facial recognition pattern, or your facial recognition that will be tied to your digital identity. You are going to need your digital identity to be able to access financial services amongst every other service that you access today, right? So this is where it's going, you know, if you don't have that digital identity, so too you may just see an announcement made that, you know, going forward all persons would be required to have a digital identity to have a bank account, to be able to hold a central bank digital currency, to use a central bank digital currency. And then ultimately, that digital identity will be tied into an RFID microchip, which you're going to have. You're going to have to take that under the skin or get that neuro implant in order to have that digital identity, in order to partake in society. So it says biometric verification now required. As of September 1st, 2025, banks across Vietnam are closing accounts deemed inactive or non-compliant with new biometric rules. Authorities estimate that more than 86 million accounts out of roughly 200 million are at risk if users fail to update their identity verification. The State Bank of Vietnam has also introduced stricter threshold for transactions. Facial authentication is mandatory for online transfers above 10 million VND, about 379 US dollars. Wow, which is about 40,000 or 40 plus thousand Jamaican dollars. So if you're gonna send that amount in Vietnamese dollar, then, you know, and damn, the Vietnamese dollar is highly inflated here. But if you're gonna send that amount in Vietnamese dollars, you're going to need to use facial authentication, right? And that's mandatory. It says culminative daily transfers over 20 million, which is about 758 US dollars, also require biometric approval. The policy is part of the central bank's broader cashless strategy aimed at combating fraud, identity theft, and deep fake enabled scams. And indeed, they're gonna tell you, oh, it's for your convenience to attack fraud, identity theft, you know. It's a pretty good article, but I'm nearing my destination, so I'm just bringing out a scripture or a few here, because, you know, it is drawing close. It is getting close to the wire, you know. Habakkuk chapter 2, let's get to the point, verse 3. It says, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, right? Because it will surely come, it will not tarry. You know, and that vision is of the MOTB, spoken of in Revelation chapter 13 and 16, which will also usher in the hour of temptation, spoken of in Revelation 3 and 10, Revelation 3 and 16, and he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And that mark is that RFID microchip and or that new implant, right? If you don't have it, the time of testing is coming, as it says here in Revelation 3 and 10, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. And that hour of temptation is a time of testing, where people, our people, the Israelites, the true biblical Israelites, right, which are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans predominantly, will be tested, tried. Esau, the enemy, Satan, as Scripture says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. When we see these things happening, we know what's happening. We know it's not only, because it will definitely combat fraud, it will definitely combat identity theft, but we know what the overall agenda is. We know that it's not only that, or mainly for those causes. It's mainly to gather more control and stricter control, so that they can play God, over our lives. So lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we're not ignorant of his devices. They're going to usher in a time of chaos, right, so that they can try to bring forth their new world order. And within that new world order, you'll be required, mandated to take this device in order to be included within the society, the stability that they are going to bring forth out of that chaos. So that's pretty much it, Lord's willing. That was edifying. I'm going to close there. Giving all praises, glory, and infinite honors to the Almighty Yahweh, Bashim Yahweh Shai, Bashim Akak Kodash. Love lands again to our apostles and elders of James Greatness soon. Peace, love, and salutations to the Lord's faithful elect. Till next time, Lord willing, Shalom.